sauce. Seeing that jade pendant startled me. I asked, hasn't it been consecrated? She replied, no, I just bought it and haven't consecrated it yet. When I said that, she started crying. She heard me saying so. Zhongkui is already here, and she was really moved to find this jade pendant she bought had been consecrated and have been protecting her. Hello, welcome back to Spirit Hotline. This episode of Spirit Hotline is a little special. You must be wondering, hey, where is Keith? He's busy with tattoos, just kidding. Actually, in order to better answer your questions, we will take turns responding. So sometimes it will be me and sometimes it will be Keith. Today, our topic is Thai Buddha amulets, protective charms, and statues. Where can you go to recharge the energy of your protective charm? Actually, I think this question is really quite tricky. Because actually, in Taoism, there are different types of protective charms. So it really depends on what kind of charms you are wearing or carrying. So if I explain a bit, protective charms themselves are different. For example, there are charms made by spirit mediums, and these made by spirit mediums are another type. Then there are charms made by Taoist priests themselves. Among the charms made by Taoist priests, there are also those with what's called a hui character, which is like the signature of the deity or their own name. And these charms don't need to be recharged with energy because the symbol itself already represents the presence of the deity. So when you have these symbols there, things like demons and evil spirits simply won't come near. Because when they see this character, they'll feel that there's a deity here, so they'll run away. But some talismans are different. There are many protective talismans that we see. Why do we say we need to replenish energy? Because when the master creates the talisman, he summons divine soldiers and generals and channels them into the talisman. So many think a talisman is just a piece of paper, but that's not true. Inside the talisman, there are so-called heavenly soldiers who are following you. So what do these heavenly soldiers and generals rely on to maintain their energy? It's what we called incense offerings, or the power of faith. So if you wear these talismans and want to replenish their energy, first you can recite scriptures yourself. For example, if you recite Taoist classics or Buddhist sutras, as long as they are scriptures related to your faith. When you recite these scriptures or these mantras, more or less, you will replenish this spiritual energy. But I've told many people, if you don't want it to be too troublesome, whenever you visit the temple, take the talisman and circle it 3 times to the left and 3 times to the right over the incense burner. Letting the talisman absorb the incense energy from the burner will recharge it. Actually, there's no need for so-called re-blessing or anything like that. Some people ask me, will the talisman expire? Some people say that when the new year comes, they have to burn the old talisman and get a new one. That's more of a gimmick. The temple wants you to come back again. That's why they do that. Actually, a talisman doesn't really expire as long as the characters, symbols, and seals on it are still intact, and it hasn't been messed up by water, and its paper isn't torn. Actually, it won't expire, so that's how it is. So, if you want to recharge the energy of your talisman, my own suggestion is that the simplest way is to go to a temple and circle the incense burner to absorb the incense energy. Furthermore, your talisman can actually become even stronger. Every time you go to a temple, you collect the smoke from their incense, which your talisman has been exposed to it for a long time. Its spiritual energy will become stronger and stronger. So yes, that's the way. May I ask if a monk or a Taoist priest can consecrate a second-hand statue again? Also, is it okay to pray to them in English? Well, actually, I think when it comes to statues, it's no problem to consecrate them as many times as you want. Actually, each sect has its own way of consecrating statues. But in our sect, sometimes when we help consecrate statues in someone's home, we don't complete the consecration because sometimes when we say consecration, you see people talk about opening the orifices, like touching the eyes, the hands, the heart. Each statue has different orifices and joints that we need to touch. But if we're just consecrating and attaching a talisman for home worship, we usually only consecrate the face. Why do we consecrate this way? It's because if we fully consecrate the whole statue, we're worried that the family might not be able to handle the power of the deity. Also, ordinary people might not perform the worship properly. If you let them fully consecrate the whole statue, we're afraid they might offend the deity. That's why we don't want them to do that. So when it comes to reconsecration, it is possible to do it again. Sometimes people say they found a statue outside, or they came across a statue that really caught their eye. If they want to bring it home to worship, we first need to perform a ritual to remove its previous spiritual connection. Clean out any impurities inside it, and after that, invite the spirit back into the statue for worship. So it's okay, it can be done. Then what a question is this? Can I pray in English? I guess you look down on our Taoist deities, right? What? Why other deities? You think, look, you can worship other deities in different languages, so why do you think our Taoist gods can't understand English? What we're saying is, deities, gods, they don't look at the language, they don't understand just the language. What they care is your sincerity. So you'll find that in their dimension, in their space, what they say isn't really a language, it's more a form of consciousness. So if your heart has that intention that we said, they'll understand. So you see, even though Guanggong, he's, let's say, Chinese, but in his era, the language he spoke was completely different from the Mandarin we speak now. Guanggong is worshipped by Vietnamese, Koreans, and Japanese, and he understands them too. So don't think of your God as being so limited. Your God is omnipotent. He can do anything, and just talk to him, just worship him. The Guanyin statue in my home has been there for a long time, so how do we know if there's still a deity inside or if it still has any spiritual power? I noticed you used the word place, which makes me wonder, when you put the statue on your altar, was it as a feng shui item or had you already performed the opening ritual? These are two different approaches. If you only treat it as feng shui item, it's like some people who get a Kaishin statue and place it in the so-called wealth position to boost their fortune and the wealth energy in their home. If that's the case, then there's nothing like, how should I put it? There's no spiritual power in it because it hasn't been consecrated. It's simply just a decoration. So we use the idea of this god of wealth, this good intention, to bring in his wealth energy. But if you say that now you have a so-called deity statue and after it's been consecrated and you worship it on the altar, that's different. How do you know if it's present? Honestly, my master told me that deities are not at your home for 24 hours a day. They have other things to do. So when are they present is when you light incense. When you light incense and pay your respects, they will definitely come. So you see, some people might say, I've lit the incense and I am going to throw the oracle blocks. Before you throw the oracle blocks, you should wait for a minute, as sometimes your first throw, is he carrying it with a smile or not carrying it at all? Some people say it's because you just lit the incense and he hasn't arrived yet. He's now rushing off, rushing from somewhere to come here, listening to what you're saying. That's what people say. Anyway, how do you know if he's here or not? Actually, there's a way we can tell. It's by looking at his face. The deity statue is supposed to receive incense offerings. So if you've been offering incense for a long time, his face will actually look better and better. So you see, some deity statues were originally white, but after you've been offering incense for a long time, they'll start to turn black because of the smoke. Then their appearance will become fiercer or look more spirited. But if the statue hasn't been consecrated and there are already some unclean things inside, no matter how much you offer incense, the statue will always stay white. Its face will look very pale, extremely pale. And when you look at it, when you go to pray, those who are more sensitive will feel that something is a bit strange. Why does his gaze seem a bit off? One important thing about a statue is that you need to look at its eyes. If when you look at its eyes, you feel a sense of evil or you feel uncomfortable, it's possible that there's already something inside that statue. And also, after all, you've been worshipping the statue in your home for so long. When you worship every day, you should have an idea of what its energy is like. That's why some of the older generations say they know whether their deity is at home or not. Because they worship every day, they more or less know what it feels like when the deity is present and what it feels like when the deity isn't there. So if you're asking this question, it means you haven't worshipped enough and you haven't talked to the statue at home. When you worship, you need to talk to it more, communicate. It's not just a piece of wood to worship daily. It's meant for you to connect with and communicate with. If you just leave it, it's only a decoration. So, is there any difference between Thai Buddha amulets and Japanese Omamori, which you called Omamori? And does Omamori have any dangers like Thai Buddha amulets? And also, do you need to replace the Japanese Omamori every year? Actually, as a Taoist, I can't really fully answer this question for you. But I have heard about it, and I also learned a bit about these things myself. Last time, I don't know if you saw it, last time on Hellbank, we went to Thailand and we found an Ajahn to tell us about Thai Buddha amulets. Then, while I was there, I learned that Thai Buddha amulets, if there's any danger, it's usually because of human factors. It's because the person abuses the power of the amulet. That's why bad things happen. This Thai master told us an important point. As long as you do good deeds and keep kindness in your heart, even demons and monsters will come to support you. So this is a very important point. And as for the Japanese Omamori charms, they are usually just for protection, like Taoist amulets. There's actually no such thing as offending them or anything like that. It's just that some people say these Omamori are sealed. They come in a pouch that's sealed. They say you shouldn't open it because if you open it, it means you don't believe in the power of the deity. So once you open it, its blessing and protective power will disappear and be lost. And then they have a custom. Every new year, they take the amulet back to the shrine, the Japanese temple. They get a new one, like us. At New Year, the amulet returns to the temple and you get a new charm. It's basically the same idea, just praying for a new beginning, a new hope, hoping the gods will protect you in the new year. That's the reasoning behind it. There aren't really any major taboos or anything like that. I'm studying abroad in a country where Buddhism isn't common. What should I prepare to protect myself? Actually, I think if you're a Buddhist, you don't really need to prepare anything special. There's something very good that you already have, which is that you can recite the so-called mantras from Buddhism. Some people recite the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. This is a very useful mantra in itself, and you can use it for anything. You know, sometimes when they perform rituals for the deceased, they use this mantra. And when they pray for blessings, they also use this mantra. If he wants to protect himself, he can use this mantra. Because the merit and power of this mantra are very great. So actually, you don't need to prepare any special things. You should know that even if this country doesn't have any Buddhist temples or monasteries, but the Buddha is everywhere and the Buddha is in your heart. So as long as you keep kindness in your heart, you know what the Buddha tour wants to teach you, and you understand the purpose of these mantras and what the Buddhist scriptures are talking about, then you really have nothing to worry about. The Buddha will bless you. When I was cleaning the Guanyin statue, I broke Guanyin's fingers twice, and now I already have a third one. So what does this mean? Wow, what do I think this means? It just means that the Guanyin statues you got are really poor quality. Yeah, when you clean the statues, you're just being gentle. The fingers can break off this. I think you bought it from Taobao, and it's low-grade quality. Actually, to be honest, statues can be cleaned. I believe it's already been broken twice, both times the fingers. You may need to be more careful, as I sense there could be an issue. Perhaps there were mistakes during the installation or consecration of this Guanyin. So actually her spirit inside isn't very stable. So now, when you were wiping and cleaning the statue, it broke. She's kind of reminding you that something's a bit off here, so you need to pay more attention. That's why it keeps breaking again and again. You need to have a new statue there. And after you perform the so-called consecration ceremony again, then it will be able to sit there peacefully. Honestly, if your consecration and installation ceremonies are done properly, everything will be settled. And when you worship, everything will go smoothly. There shouldn't be things like the statue breaking or anything like that. I still need to see if you have a real photo. What does your Guanyin look like? I want to check because from what I'm hearing, there might be something wrong with your Guanyin or something in your house you should notice. Sometimes they say it's not just the statue, but also things like the furniture in your house, like windows or chairs. If they suddenly break, it could be a kind of sign, a symbol as we call it. For example, some people say if a window in a certain direction of your house breaks, it means that someone in your family might have a health problem coming up. For example, I once went to a house with a senior brother to check the feng shui, and the window in a certain direction of the house kept breaking. Every time they fixed it, the mirror would break again. We found this direction matched the stomach area and was where the female owner was. We asked the female owner if she had stomach problems. She said her stomach had felt bad and uncomfortable lately. We advised her to see a doctor and she was diagnosed with a stomach illness. Sometimes these things are actually connected to us as people. So if your deity statue keeps breaking, I suggest you be a bit more careful. You should find a master or someone to help you take a look at it. So some people have asked us, saying that, and we've mentioned on the show before, that it seems like the power of Buddha amulets weakens over time. Then someone asked, for those amulets blessed by high monks like Somdej, Fra Somdej, will their spiritual power also disappear one day? Actually, I don't think that will happen. Because if we look at it from the perspective of amulets, what is on the amulet? It's the Buddha. When these high monks bless the amulets, what they are really doing is opening the light of wisdom within you. So as long as you wear the amulet and remember the Buddha's teachings, be a good person and continue to practice, then it has already achieved its purpose and its spiritual power will not disappear. Like I mentioned earlier, that's what Ajahn said. As long as we keep kind thoughts in our hearts and continue to do good deeds, these merits will always support you. So actually, some people might be wearing amulets that haven't been blessed or worshipping deities that haven't been blessed. But because they worship every day and they do it with great sincerity and do good deeds, sincerely dedicating themselves to this deity or amulet, it will become blessed on its own. And sometimes if you have a connection with these deities, they will support you on their own. Last week, I actually helped someone bless his jade amulet. When I saw the amulet, I was a bit surprised. He asked me to bless his zhongkui, and when I looked at his amulet, I said, hasn't this already been blessed? He said, no, I just bought it. It hasn't been blessed yet. I said, but when I see this amulet, it feels already blessed. Then when I said that, he started crying. I asked, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly crying? He then told me he's always felt connected to zhongkui since childhood. And his life has actually been very difficult, and he feels that zhongkui has been protecting him in secret. So he said when he heard me say that zhongkui is already here, he bought this blessed jade pendant and felt deeply moved while it protected him. So actually, situations like this can happen too. That is, some statues of deities or some Buddha amulets. Even without a blessing, some amulets can become blessed on their own. Some have been blessed by high monks or consecrated by great masters. But if the wearer is very wicked, when he takes this Buddha amulet, the spiritual power of the Buddha, the power of the amulet, will all disappear. Because no deity, no god or Buddha, we're talking about gods and Buddhas, would want to protect or support this person. In the end, it's not about the high monk's power or anything else. It's about the wearer's virtue. So, always do good deeds. Okay, so I want to remind everyone here, actually, whether it's wearing a Buddha amulet or a protective talisman, there's really no need to be overly concerned or superstitious about it. Because these are all for protection, protecting you and reminding you about values and virtues. But I think that if you want to wear a good so-called Buddha amulet or a protective talisman, and you want these charms to actually work for you, I think it's best for you to find a master or a spiritual teacher you trust to match one for you. Because after all, there was a time when I wore a protective talisman from our own Taoist tradition, a kind of amulet. After wearing it, I felt uncomfortable all day because I was too weak to handle the talisman's energy. So sometimes you see some people say this talisman is really powerful and things like that. But wearing it brings bad luck and problems as your fate can't handle such strong energy. So it's best for you to find a master to help you see whether it's really suitable for you. So if you want to find someone like a master to help you, you can come to me or you can go to Keith. Thank you for sending in these questions. So if you have any other questions you want us to answer, you can fill them out on our Google form or leave a comment below our YouTube video. You can also email us directly and let us know what you want to learn about. So, see you next time. Bye.